Hello, Internet, and welcome once again to the Free-to-Play cast brought to you by MMOBomb.com, your home for all things free-to-play related. This is episode 288. We're recording on January 24th. You're watching it on the 25th or later. I am Mike Byrne, aka magicman, your host for the day. And we've got esports. Well, I mean, are they even going to be a thing anymore? Who knows with the way things are going nowadays. We go into our predictions on what might or may not, or has a good chance or not a good chance at all of going free to play this year. And then we're going to take a look at first look video that we did and give you our opinions for Guardians of Ember. Joining me to go through all of it, you know him, you love him, you want more of him, Mr. Jason Winter. How are you, sir? Okay.
Well, I just thought I'd take the same approach that you did in that first look video and remain silent for the first few seconds.
Oh, come on. Don't do that to me. I was showing the logos.
Oh, well, the logo. You didn't want to
Yeah.
spoil logo. Oh, God.
Yeah, I had to show the logos, man. Give credit where due.
That's the excuse he's giving now, guys.
Actually, that's one of the things I always go back and forth on when we're doing first look videos, because sometimes I've included those logos at the beginning, and sometimes I haven't. I just jump right into it, and I always feel bad. Like, I should probably include those logos. Those are the companies that worked on it, and I know I'm gonna say it 10 seconds into the video, like who it's developed and published by, but they paid for those logos for a reason. The least I can do is show them.
There's a logo there.
Yeah, we got two, because it's just the two of us today. Ms. Quintlin Bowers having a little bit of internet issues. Tried to get Zach on, just didn't work schedule-wise, so we'll see. And Troy was a little bit locked up,
Did we pay for these logos? Did we pay a lot of money for these?
Like hundreds of bajillions of dollars, because we are the biggest channel on YouTube.
On YouTube.
All right, so let's slide over, get started with the news. All right, so we've got another story, and we'll talk about this one story first, and then we'll kind of see where it lands the bigger picture. Heroes of the Storm, we talked a few shows ago, about their esports scene basically shutting down, Jason, right? They say, hey, we're not doing Heroes of the Dorm anymore. We're not going to do some of these other events. They were basically withdrawing from the esports scene. And now, predictably, that has caused a few problems. Granted, this one that we're going to talk about in particular isn't directly Blizzard's fault or a responsibility of Blizzard. This is kind of a little different from the H1Z1 stuff that we talked a few weeks ago about as well. But what's going on with the Heroes of the Storm team, Naventic? What's the deal here?
Yeah, apparently this has been going on for years. Apparently in 2017 was when they started having these issues. That 5 members of the team, they're suing the former owner, a fellow by the name of James Ross Elliott II. Yeah, he was the owner of Naventic, and he owed the money, and then he disappeared.
Gone.
They say I don't know if it was in the lawsuit or if it was what the article reported about this from .esports, said that he dropped off the face of the earth. And apparently they've not been able to contact him since 2017. Yeah, April 2017.
Wow.
Apparently the various other operations of the company carried on via staff, and then it was sold to someone else in August. But the first guy owes them over $50,000 in unpaid wages, prize money, and interest. And they're now finally getting around to suing, to having it dealt with, which it amazed me that it went that long. It's been 2 years before we're having, I guess, an official legal action against it. So
right, it seems to me like that length of time, that's like, all right, Jason owes me $20 and I haven't seen him in 6 months. I'm gonna chalk that up as a loss. Jason owes me $50,000. I haven't seen him in 2 or 3 months. I'm gonna file something with a court. I mean, that seems like
I can understand 2 or 3 months you're still trying to find it, going through channels or whatever.
No,
but
no.
6 months to a year. Yeah,
we're not talking about. I know Jason's reading my messages, my text messages, and stuff like that. He's just ducking me. All right, I'll give him a little more. The dude totally vanished, Jason. I think that's a bit different. If 2 or 3 months down the road, somebody that owes me 50 grand just vanishes, you can bet this is being filed in court right away. There is no, all right, I'm going to keep trying, and maybe I'll, knock on the door, whatever. No,
Like
he's gone.
You see me still on Twitter or whatever. You know I'm out there somewhere. But
Right.
if this guy's really just erased himself and
Just
gone off the grid.
totally gone. Now, again, that doesn't have anything to do with Blizzard directly. It's not Blizzard that owes them the money or anything. Totally different from the H1Z1 stuff with Daybreak and them owing their teams money, which, sidebar, we reached out, Jason, to ask if they had been paid yet. Let's give the viewers an update there.
Well, the update is that I misinterpreted a little bit of what Jace Hall originally said about at the end of the league year, he's going to make sure they're paid. Apparently, that's not the actual calendar year. Apparently, that's not until April. So
Daybreak has a few more months.
Yeah, I checked in with someone. They said they hadn't been paid yet, but then they clarified that for me. So I'm going to check back in a few months and see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on it. So this has kind of led to a broader question. Let's recap a few things that have gone on in just the last few months, closing out 2018 and starting up 2019. We, of course, had H1Z1 suspending all of their esports stuff and the payment stuff that we just spoke about there. We saw Riot Games kind of backing off of the esports scene a little bit in an effort to stabilize how much they spend versus how much they were making on that. Then we had Blizzard jump out and say, we're not going to do esports anymore with Heroes of the Storm. Then they also, a few weeks later, started kind of testing the water with Hearthstone players, asking them, hey, would you be okay without sponsored tournaments and things like that? And I know, Jason, that if to ask the question, is esports dying? No, the answer is probably not. It's dying. You've still got your mainstays, right? Your StarCrafts, the things that were esports before some of the games we're talking about even became esports. Those are still tremendously big, and especially tremendously big outside of the United States, too. Bigger than they are here. They have their followings. But does this concern you on a whole for the esports scene? You could argue that I'm cherry picking, right? I'm picking some stories that fit the question that I'm asking you. My retort would be, look at the ones I cherry-picked. We're talking about Riot. We're talking about Blizzard. We're talking about Daybreak, granted the smallest of the three of those. Those are really, really big names in this scene, so it's not like I cherry-picked a few non-contenders that had an esports scene for a month. We're talking about some big names in the industry kind of backing off of this a little bit, if not dropping it altogether. What's that say about where esports is 6 months, a year from now?
Well, I wonder, though, how many of the stories we're not seeing. Like, of all the
Right.
hundreds of really, really tiny companies that are out there. Remember, what is it? Heavy Metal Machines. They're doing esports, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah, and I have no idea how that's going.
Well,
They have,
and Switchblade that just went into launch/early access. They're going to try to do
yeah,
esports.
Jesse Cox's favorite game.
I just got an email from them, actually. Ironically, I'll tell this to you because I haven't had a chance to yet. It was literally happening as we were getting ready to do the free-to-play cast. I got an email from a PR company about a particular game, asking, hey, could we help you with your coverage? Do you need codes? Whatever. Turns out the game was not free-to-play, so I had to give them a response of, hey, we only cover free-to-play. Out of nowhere, their reply was, okay, thanks for letting us know, no problem, and thanks for taking the time to reply. Would you be interested in Switchblade, which went free to play yesterday? Like, it was just tacked on. It was like, oh, by the way. And I was like, yeah, we covered that yesterday when it launched, and we're planning to do a first look video. And I started typing to ask them, hey, you weren't the PR company back then, but...
Here's what we had
6 months ago, we were going to do a first look on this when it was in a press-only access. And we had some issues with the in-game chat client. You couldn't shut the damn thing off, even if you set the options to off. And so we kept getting an echo in our recording. We had no way to get it out of there unless we wanted to take game audio out entirely, which we don't want to do for a first look. And they never answered us when we asked about it. The game finished its closed beta or closed alpha or whatever it was, and we'd never heard from them again. Then all of a sudden, well, if you can't cover this game, we're doing this other game. It was so like after the fact. So I said, yeah, sure, whatever, send us over codes. So we'll probably be doing a giveaway for Switchblade, ironically.
Sure.
Keep your eyes posted. And there's some good things about that. There were things that you and I were like, oh, this is kind of neat. But we just ultimately left a bad taste in your mouth when you can't reach the developers about things. And it is small. So we'll take a look and see where it goes. But
it has
anyway,
great butts.
Yeah, anyway,
great butts.
On to the bigger esports scene. Go ahead, Jason.
So the question was, but not it wasn't is esports dying. It was where do I see them in like 6 months to a year or so. I mean, it's like esports isn't necessarily in its infancy because, like you said, there've been stuff going back a long time. Quake or StarCraft or whatever. I think the push to be really mass market and be mainstream, I think that's still fairly new, and that's where they're still going to struggle at. And I think you have a lot of companies spending a lot of money, like Blizzard, like Daybreak, and all those. They're spending a lot of that money to try and break into TV or whatever, and it's not always going to be there. It's going to be a struggle early on because, despite the fact that we see, look at a press release says, oh, there were 150 million people watched the League of Legends World Championship, when it was probably like, over the span of a week, 150 million people over Twitch tuned in for like 3 seconds or whatever, and eventually, whatever. It's not the same as 100 million people are watching the Super Bowl.
Right.
Same thing, No, it's not the same thing. But in terms of trying to get that mass market thing, the money that you're spending on all that is not always going to be an immediate return. You have to spend that just to get awareness in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and that's what kind of didn't surprise me about Riot's decision to, all right, we've got to take some money out of this, because Riot is one of those companies like Valve with the Dota Invitational and those other big ones that they have put so much money into for such an extended period of time that now it's time that if they're not seeing those rewards, they have to start pulling back. So it didn't surprise me that they did it, but some of these other, H1Z1 jumped in, jumped out. HOTS arguably jumped in, jumped out. These bigger names doing it very, very quickly, those ones kind of led me to believe is, are there too many options? Are the options all so similar that you might as well stick with Dota 2 or with League of Legends because they have most of the players and you're going to get the biggest competition bang for your buck anyway? Magic the Gathering Arena, I'm sure, is going to move into, an esports type environment. That's a little different, right? Because it's got its own tournament structure and stuff that's existed for decades now. So, yeah, it's kind of weird. The big players backing out of it a little bit, that's certainly got to make the smaller players infinitely more nervous, because the big players are the ones that fund those unified esports leagues and competitions and things like that.
H1Z1 is a weird thing that, because if you look at their Steam charts, they have the weirdest Steam charts ever. It was like in like mid 2017, they peaked at having like 80,000 people online at once. So I can understand that they at that point said, let's do an esports league. We're huge. Right. The problem is, by the time they actually got it launched in April, they'd already gone to free-to-play and had like 5,000 people on at once. So I could see where they might have got a little trapped there. Like, they weren't expecting that. And then for HOTS, it was never that good. I mean, not in terms of quality. I'm just talking in terms of population and money brought in. I think it was never doing that well. They said, hey, we got esports for this other stuff. Why not apply that to this?
Well, I think Blizzard, when it comes to HOTS, and granted, I'm not a MOBA master or anything like that, and everybody that watches this show knows that, but I think Blizzard tried to do what Blizzard does, right? Yeah. They take a good concept and they casualize portions of it to try and increase the audience size, and they tried to do that with HOTS to a certain extent. But then when it attracted all the MOBA players that are going to be the ones that make it an esport, right? I'm not going to make a MOBA an esport. I don't care. I don't care enough to play it. I certainly don't care enough to watch it. So the players that stick with it, they're the ones that started giving all this feedback on, you've got to tighten some things up, particularly if you want to go to esports. You got to do these types of things. And Blizzard wasn't willing to do that. So I kind of look at Blizzard as being a little self-inflicted, based on the Blizzard philosophy of let's make things a little bit more casual and grab a bigger audience than League of Legends or Dota 2 would, because they're a little more streamlined, tight-knit, and the learning curve is ultimately bigger.
Sure. All right. I never followed HOTS that much to know how they tweaked it on those levels. So, yeah, I guess that could be right.
Well, there were multiple stories over the last year or two of tons of MOBA expert, esport, high-profile people giving Blizzard feedback and being disappointed that it just nothing was done with it.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's really weird.
I mean, I sort of look at, like, I look at the early days, like the NFL in the 1920s. You know, we don't talk about the teams that were around there, like the Columbus Panhandles or whatever. You never heard of those. That's the thing is, like 70 or 80% of those teams that existed back then no longer exist. But here we are 100 years later. The NFL is still around. It's still big. It's strong. That's kind of where I think we're at here. There are going to be a lot of things that just come up and then go down, just flame out quickly. Some that might even last for 5-10 years. But maybe it's going to be a while. Maybe in 50, 60 years is when we'll see the esports channel as a regular part of the cable package right next to ESPN or whatever.
Right.
But it's going to take a while, and there's going to be a lot of games. A lot of them that come up with a lot of, big money and, seemingly a lot of press, and they'll just flame out. But some things will stick around probably, keep it going, or by then we'll be on, Dota 6 or whatever,
You know what's interesting? A company we haven't heard from on any of this is Hi-Rez. I mean, they are so ingrained in the esports stuff with Smite and now Realm Royale and Paladins, and they have title after title after title. But I also haven't seen Smite, what's the best term here? Overextend to the way that you've seen H1Z1 or Blizzard or Riot overextend financially. Riot being able to do it, trying to kick the whole thing off, that's fine. I'm not saying they did anything wrong there. But Hi-Rez has always kind of kept it close, promoted the esports thing, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them and their esports scene over the next year. If something changes at Hi-Rez where they back out of something or start scaling back, I think that might be a key indicator that something is very wrong in the state of esports as a whole.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to, like I was talking about the 150 million people at League of Legends. You can't be someone who looks at that and says, well, why can't we get 150 million people watching our esports league?
Right.
Maybe Blizzard can do that, but even then, even if they fall short of that and only get 100 million and they're only bringing in, 2/3 of the money, that's going to be, not enough for them. If they invest it, thinking they're going to get 150 and only get 100. So
particularly with the way Activision seems to be cracking down on all of its portfolio, including Blizzard. So it's going to be interesting to watch. I think esports is probably going to change quite a bit over the next year, all through 2019, but it's going to be interesting to watch the evolution. So we'll keep you posted, and we'll be asking for your feedback on that when we get to the question of the week. So now let's talk about 2019. Last show, we talked about some predictions. This time, just general predictions as far as the world of free-to-play. This time, we're going to get a little more specific, and we're going to talk about 10 games and give you Jason's opinion in the article, and then I'll give some of mine as we're going on, will these games go free-to-play? What are the odds on a 1 to 10 scale that these games will go free-to-play at some point in 2019? First up, go ahead.
Just to be clear, I do not specify necessarily 2019. I'm really waffly on this. I'm kind of like soonish, whatever. So just to be clear, we'll revisit this at the end of the year and see how I did. But I'm not being totally. You're shaking your head.
I am shaking my head.
Yeah,
that's a waffle if I ever heard one. Right there.
That's a waffle with maple syrup.
Let's throw number 1 on the chopping block here and see where it goes. Planet-side Arena. We haven't talked a lot about it since it's not going to be free to play, astonishingly to all of us when it was announced. And this is going to be their kind of offshoot a little from the PlanetSide 2 world. It takes place in the future. Everybody's kind of a mercenary. The factions are gone. You can check out more on PlanetSide Arena's website for that, since we don't have much on it besides, hey, it ain't going to be free to play. Jason, you rate this one as an 8 out of 10 probability that this damn thing is going to go free to play. And honestly, I think my only gripe is that you didn't put it at a 9 or a 10, because I think this one is almost guaranteed to go free to play at some point, isn't it?
Yeah, like I said, I gave it almost on par with Blessed, saying they know this. They're just trying to get their box money, get their upfront cash as much as possible before going free to play. But I gave them a little bit of room just in case. Daybreak might just shut down entirely if this works. So that's the other 2 of 10.
Yeah, that'll go along with a prediction we talked about last show.
Yeah.
Something big will happen to Daybreak this year. The next one caused a little bit of controversy after the fact.
Wasn't my fault.
It wasn't Jason's fault. No, it wasn't Jason's fault. So, Jason, you predicted out of 6 out of 10 probability that, or possibility that Fallout 76 would go free to play. Now, initially, I just kind of agreed with that. I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. It'll be, towards the mid to late portion of this year. It'll be about a year old. It had such a rocky launch. Really isn't. It's hemorrhaging an audience right now. Then they got the whole Canvi thing. This is kind of bad. I could see them not wanting to do it right now, but later in the year, I could certainly see it. So I kind of agreed. 6 out of 10. If you gave me 2019 and 2020, I'd probably say 8 or 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
But pretty much minutes after we posted this article, we found something else immediately go up to that kind of went, well, maybe we're more right than we thought.
Yeah, apparently the game had been pulled from shelves in Australia or something. Is that what it was? Let me see here.
Yeah, EB Games in Australia.
Yeah, EB Games pulled the game from shelves in Australia, which led to the entire internet cycle of, oh my god, it's going to go free to play. Which then Bethesda came out and tweeted and said, nope.
Yeah, there was no equivocation in their answer.
Yeah.
There was nothing like from Evolve, when we were pretty sure Evolve was on the cusp of going free to play, and they were like, well, you were always considering all payment models, but we don't have a decision to make. They were just like, this is not true. They just flat out, nope, ain't happening.
Which you at least have to do when your own game is only 2 months old.
Right. But to be fair, it was also like $30 off 5 days after it came out. So, and there's also one thing I want to point out, and I don't know if you remember this. In 2015, late 2014, 2015, somewhere in there, this same story broke, this exact same story about another Bethesda license. Do you remember this? EB Games in Australia pulled retail copies and all the cards, the payment cards for Elder Scrolls Online from their stores, which led to, is it going free-to-play talks? Of course, Bethesda came out and said no, and obviously we've seen that one bear out. It did not go free-to-play, and still to this day isn't free-to-play.
But they did take off the sub price.
Well, yeah, they took out the sub price, but they didn't take out the box fee for it. It's still a buy-to-play game.
Sure.
So we've seen this exact thing happen before. And the excuse given back then from EB Games after the fact, after all the speculation was already up, was one that is true, having worked in retail. I can personally tell you this is true. This does happen. It was in conjunction with shipping everything back to the publisher following the holiday season. All the stuff that they were done with in January, they shipped it all back to the publisher. Here we are again, 4 years down the road. All the Fallout stuff being stripped from stores. I'm not saying that doesn't mean it isn't going free to play. I mean, it certainly could, but we've seen this before specifically with Bethesda, and it didn't go anywhere. So maybe there's an element of truth to, no, this is false.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily in their plans right this minute, but like you said...
Oh, I think it's written down somewhere.
Oh, yeah, it's a little note in the back of Todd Howard's head.
Right. Yeah. Next up, Artifact, and I'm going to let you take this one because honestly, I stopped watching or caring about anything Artifact related pretty much from the initial trailer. So,
but we still thought it might be free to play at that point.
We did, and we were stunned when it wasn't, and you don't think it's going to go free to play anytime soon.
Yeah, because I don't know how they would, because they have made such a big deal of it being this real money, card auction or card pricing environment that's so ingrained into the game. It requires you to pay to get it, because otherwise you just make free accounts and keep selling your free cards that you get over and over. So I don't know how they could do it without completely nuking that. And Valve being Valve, I could see them just sucking it up instead and saying, this is how it's going to be, and we're going to either make money off this or we're going to shut it down. We're not going to change it to something where we'd have to rewrite our grand concept of the game.
Yeah, and you got to think that it's not something that they sunk a ton of money into to begin with.
That's true.
It's not a Fallout 4. It's not a
Half-Life 3.
Half-Life 3. It's nothing like that. I'm not diminishing the amount of work or money that certainly went into it, but in comparison, I don't think there's the bless factor, right? We have put so much money into this that we need the players to be there, so let's convert to free-to-play after we get a little bit of this cash back. I don't think there's anywhere near that kind of impetus from Valve, particularly on this project.
But you look at the numbers. I mean, and sure, everything
about $2,000 on right now.
Well, yeah, and everything launches big, and you say, oh, yeah, I know it's going to go down. But even, like, let's see, what is today, the 24th? 2 weeks ago, its peak today is 2,500. Just 2 weeks ago, it was over 4,000. So it's like, even it's still dipping down. What is the bottom going to be? You want
right? Yeah. Where is that plateau that you expect after the initial drop off? We'll keep an eye on, but you only give that one a 3 out of 10. So yeah, we'll see. Yeah. Black Desert Online. Now you put this one at a free-to-play possibility of 5 out of 10. This
was my wishy-washy one. My very much.
Yeah, you putting it at flip a coin.
Yeah.
I'm going to say no, only because I don't think there's a reason for them to. Now, you make the point of it's like $9.99 and has been for a long time, and hell, you could catch it on sale sometimes for like $3 and things like that. But it still draws thousands of concurrent players, so it's not like they're having a hard time getting players. There's still a ton of people playing it. I don't think your argument is kind of, well, there's no real need to have a box price anymore. So, and you already have a stable audience, so why not influx it with some new free-to-play players and maybe make a little extra off of the cash shop than you're making now? My argument's kind of the exact opposite, is if the $10 isn't a barrier to having 10,000 concurrent players, might as well suck up the $10 where and when you can and keep some of that inferred free-to-play player toxicity out. There's just no reason for it. Apparently the price isn't a barrier, and so there's no real reason to change in my book.
See, that's it. This is why it's a 5 out of 10. There's no reason for them to change, but there's no reason for them not to.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
I don't know, 6 of one, half dozen the other. Like, I compared it to Guild Wars 2 from when it went free-to-play a few years ago. They were kind of the same thing. Buy-to-play game, often discounted around $10 or so. Maybe I think it might even gone cheaper occasionally. And they just said, all right, we're just going to make the base game free to play. It's like, all right, sure. And this seems like a lot of the same situation. Like, you could or you couldn't. Whatever.
That, and they just had their console launch, didn't they?
Oh, did they?
BDO console launch. I know it was in testing. Black Desert, Xbox. Arriving, so it's March 4th. So in a little over a month, they'll have their console launch. This is the Xbox date. I don't know if the PlayStation date's different. I'm not going to look it up while we're in the middle of the show. I know they were running testing. So in a little over a month, they'll also have their console launch. Now you can pre-order it apparently on the consoles anywhere from $30 to $100. So there you go. Standard
so at least
edition.
After that is when they would go free to play.
Right. Yeah, so they're not going free to play. Well, I think even then they got to wait 5 or 6 months at minimum. Yeah. So that would put it September, October at that point. I don't think this one changes this year.
Okay.
Overwatch.
This one you disagreed with, isn't it?
Overwatch. Yeah, and this I don't think this would have even been on the list. I mean, maybe as a discussion point, but I think it had to make this list once Michael Pachter made his predictions for 2019, and he put this one on the free-to-play conversion. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of his leading arguments for why it's probably going to go free-to-play is that the Esports League, back to that topic, is kind of upset in how this has been promoted and the growth Blizzard has promised, etc., 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 and would love to see this made free-to-play to increase the audience size. That was one of his arguments in there. Then, of course, again, Activision, loot boxes, free-to-play audience, more money was another argument from him. You put it at a 2 out of 10, so it looks like you didn't go with Mr. Pactor.
Yeah, first of all, you have the fact that, if I follow the Overwatch League pretty highly. So first of all, the initial teams, they had 12 teams in the initial league. You paid like $20 million to get in. That was the entrance fee. After the first season, they attracted 8 more teams, and I don't remember what the number was, but I think it was something like 50 or 60 million was the fee to get in. So if they're hurting and if people are upset, why were they able to get 8 more people to pay 3 times the amount?
Right.
That I don't necessarily know. Obviously, you always want it to be bigger. You always want more, especially when you're doing that. And the other issue they have is that Twitch was apparently banned in China or something, and they added 3 new Chinese teams like a few days before that happened.
Ooh.
So that is maybe a bit of an issue there. But yeah, overall, I don't think it's in as bad a situation as some people are saying. Like, I know some people will go, "Oh, man, it's not as big as it once was. It's coming down, and they're not getting as many loot box sales or whatever." I think it's still doing all right. I think it's doing all right enough for the foreseeable future to stay not free to play. I don't think they need to make any emergency move or anything like that.
Well, and I think loot box regulations / legislation could also keep that box fee in place.
That's true, depending on how that goes.
How does that stuff go?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they were specifically mentioned in some of the EU hearings and investigations. So that may be impetus for, we got to keep the $20, $30, $40 box price on there, depending on what kind of sale. I don't think this goes free to play this year either, but I will put a caveat on it of, I wouldn't be surprised if it did.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be stunned by it, but I just personally don't think it happens this year.
My surprise, I'd be 2 out of 10 surprised. I think it was a 20% chance. There you go.
There you go. Last up, Call of Duty Black Ops 4, specifically because some people commented on this because apparently they didn't read the whole thing. Maybe, I don't know. Specifically, you're pointing out the Blackout Battle Royale mode, not necessarily the entire game.
Yeah.
And you give this one a 9 out of 10 going free to play. And I gotta say, I'm gonna let you make the argument for it because your argument swayed me. I went, okay, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. I would do it.
I mean, first of all, it's a battle royale. So other than PUBG, can you think of a battle royale that's not free to play?
Yeah, not that's doing any good.
Was that a yes? Like you can't think of something?
Well, I mean, we've got H1Z1.
But that's free to play.
Well, yeah, because it had to be.
Well, yeah, but other than that, I mean, yeah, you've got Fortnite, you've got Realm Royale, you've got Cuisine Royale, you've got Skyfall.
Cuisine Royale. I am sure that you just made Gaijin Entertainment's day by putting Cuisine Royale in the same sentence as Fortnite and Realm Royale. You just made their day.
Just the first one that came out, because you got to have Royale in there. It's like how every MMO had to be World of something for a while.
All right, go ahead, finish it.
But yeah, I mean, first of all, you don't have many battle royales that aren't free to play. Second, they're actually free to play. Like right now, I think it ends today. Their free trial. And I mean, I just think, why not? What is the loss there? You get people playing that. You get in that. You probably sell loot boxes and so forth. And maybe you get people to actually buy, the real game, buy the real Call of Duty. It just seems like a good deal all around.
Yeah, and depending on when you do it, you could use it to market the follow-up, the next Call of Duty title in the series.
Black Ops 6.
Black Ops 75, 2019. Who knows what it's called?
Whiteout.
Yeah, so you put this at a 9 out of 10, and I agree. That's probably up there. Specifically, again, we're talking about the Blackout mode, not all of a sudden just making an entire AAA game for free. That's not what we're talking about. So let us know your opinions on those titles in the comments below. And we're going to finish up before we slide over to the weekly bombs here with a bit of a review for Guardians of Ember. I posted the first look for this week. It's an action ARPG developed by Runewaker. That's the team that you may know from Runes of Magic, the free-to-play MMORPG, and published by Gameforge. Now, admittedly, Jason and I being in the United States, we don't have a ton of interaction with Gameforge besides covering things for MMO Bomb. There aren't many things that are published exclusively by Gameforge for us in the United States, but we understand they generally don't have the best reputation when it comes to free-to-play. I do think it is interesting to note, Jason, first off, how they got a hold of this game, because it wasn't theirs to begin with. It was under Incel Games as the developer house on Steam like a year ago, and was a buy-to-play title back then.
Yeah, and then they got caught for boosting their Steam reviews.
Womp, womp.
Yeah. Speaking of which, there's another game I saw. I don't remember what it's called now, but it's some small game. It's like a platformer. That if you ever, there's a thing called MTurk, Amazon MTurk, which is where you get a little bit of money for doing these simple little tasks. Mm-hmm. And one of the tasks was, please put our game on the wish list on Steam.
Oh, God. Paying
like 15 cents to do it each time. So I think Steam's going to have a few words with them about that.
Oh, boy.
But anyway, yeah, Incel Games, they did pretty much the same thing. Not publicly through money. I think they just asked employees to do it and fans, and they went on their forums or something like that.
And they got caught.
Yeah, to write good reviews about their game.
It was a couple of their titles, too. It wasn't just this one.
As a developer, they got completely knocked off Steam for that. So.
Yep. So they got the boot. GameForge picked up the license. We speculated at the time, hey, it's GameForge. It's probably going to be free to play now. It won't have that price tag on it, which I think at the time was only like $10 anyway. But this week, it did go into what they're calling a free-to-slay beta, so feel free to head on over to the site and get started. Jason celebrating. January is free-to-slay month. So go ahead, jump in if it's any interest to you, and it is confirmed it will be free-to-play when it launches as well. Now, as for the game itself, it's a generic ARPG. That's not to say that I didn't enjoy it. There are elements of the game that I enjoyed, Jason. I enjoyed, it's a looter, dungeon delve, go do your thing. It does all of that stuff that you would expect from a Diablo, from a Torchlight, from a Path of Exile, dungeons, go get loot, bring it back, disenchant it, break it down, build something else, enchant your gear, level up, cycle. It does all of that. I like that type of gameplay, generally, anyway. So it's got that working for it. Although the graphics aren't top tier, I did find them enjoyable. I like the more realistic look, much like I like it in Path of Exile, compared to a Diablo or, at the extreme end of the cartoony scale, something like Torchlight. So I did like it graphically, particularly some of the huge boss monsters, which you didn't get to see in the first look video because one of them was part of the tutorial that I had to complete to set up everything for the recording, and then I didn't play hours and hours to get to something big again. So none in the video, but I did like some of the models. I didn't like the washed out look, and more games are doing that, Jason. I don't like that like foggy layer of glaze almost over it. Now, somebody did comment on the first look video that that's not their art direction. Although a lot of games are doing that, that was not their art direction, and that it was only because I had the game running on the highest setting possible, and if I backed the settings down from like very high to high, that disappeared. Which I thought was stunning to me.
So you reduced your graphic settings to get better graphics.
Right, I thanked them for it because it worked, but I never would have thought to back my resolution or my graphic settings down to make it look better, but it did. So, on the bad side of things, while I did find the game enjoyable, and I am still dabbling in it, I was in it a little bit this morning checking some things out for the free-to-play cast today, there are some things that I don't like. Combat is sluggish. There's a noticeable delay, Jason, between the press and the action and what happens. And I don't know if that's all client related or if it's all server related because the game is only hosted in the EU and I'm East Coast United States. I wouldn't expect the ping to be that bad, but maybe it is. On one server while in testing. So maybe that's something that can work out in optimization and beta testing. Maybe that's just the way the combat is in that game, in which case I think long-term I would jump to other ARPGs that just have a bit faster response to it. It is a little bit sluggish. On the other side, it is GameForge, and while we don't know any of their monetization yet because it's in testing, there is a currency tab that has like 15 currencies on the damn thing. I talked about it in the first look video, including a number of keys that you get as daily login rewards and stuff that unlock the treasure chests in dungeons. So you are limited to, presumably limited to the amount of treasures you can get by how many keys you have. And things like that. So there is potential for it to just go all cattywampus, and then I won't ever want to play it again, particularly when it's GameForge, and I'll let our EU brothers and sisters chime in the comments to let you know what that's all about. The final critique that I will give here, although I enjoyed the game, there is nothing new here. At the end of the day, there is nothing new in this one. And some of the things that these types of games have to do really well, Guardians of Ember just doesn't yet. Does that mean it might not? Who knows? But I can't imagine a ton of optimization going on for a game that did release over a year ago as a buy-to-play title. What did they do over the last year? And what are they going to do in the couple of months that they run this beta test and then go into a launch? I can't imagine that combat's going to speed up all that much. But so, yeah, I gave it a generally favorable kind of viewpoint for me, and it is right now. Combat is what pulls that down from enjoyable to favorable for me, with the potential of Cash Op to just totally destroy it. What did you think after checking out the first look video?
Well, you say they do nothing different, but did you see in the character customization, one of the sliders they had was for buttock height?
Mm-hmm.
That makes it a perfect game right there for me. I could change the shape of my buttocks, the height, whatever. There we go. That's all I need.
Yeah.
But no, other than that, though, I looked at it and was like, yeah, why would I play this game when I can play Path of Exile now, or I could play Torchlight Frontiers in a few months?
Yeah, that's the big one, right? Is that Torchlight Frontiers is right on the horizon.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. You talk about the realistic art style. I think more of like, for me,
Whoops.
ARPGs like the difference between.
I
like,
put up Q screen. Sorry about that.
Yeah, difference between like grim and dark, or at least somewhat bright and colorful. You know, grim and dark, I think of Path of Exile, Diablo. Bright and colorful is more like this, Torchlight. I just feel like Torchlight looks better. Like I would just rather play that, I think. And I'm not even a big Torchlight fan. I never got into it a whole lot. But yeah, I just don't look at this and think it's something I'd really want to try when I have other options available, or will soon have another option available.
Yeah, and it's hard to ignore how big the option coming down the pike is for this one. So check it out if it's something you're interested in, or maybe just to tide you over on the ARPG front before they put in the Cash Op shit, to tide you over till like a Torchlight Frontiers comes out. Let's slide over, do the weekly bombs. Jason, you're up, sir.
I'm going to give an A-bomb to the Ring of Elysium Travel Agency.
What?
Yeah, I mean, they booked me on this great trip to a ski resort. It was going to be just all sorts of wintry fun.
I don't think this is a thing. I think
No, this is totally. I mean, I went there, and it was great for a little while. And this blizzard moves in, and everybody starts killing themselves.
No.
I have to, like...
Jason, I think you booked on the wrong site.
Well, no, I mean, I was willing to give them a little... I got on the helicopter, I got away, and I was willing to give them a little bit of, leeway, because, just random stuff like that happens. Then they send me on this trip to this tropical island, and a volcano's going off. Like, what the heck is wrong with these people?
Because, shit like that happens.
I mean, gee, I am never getting a vacation from these guys ever again. Screw you, Ring of Elysium.
Oh, my God. I think you should probably read the websites you're on a little closer. I'm going to give an A-bomb to my old ass here. EverQuest is fucking turning 20, Jason. 20.
Does your old ass have a buttock slider?
If it does, we're gonna have to raise it up with the age I'm getting to. Just lift it a little bit. Yeah, 20 years old. I mean, congrats to EverQuest on making it to that. And God, with all the expansions they've had, you can't argue that it hasn't been a successful run for a very, very long time, even if it's not as successful anymore as it once was. And I mean, people that watch the show that know my very first MMO gameplay ever in my entire life was EQ Online Adventures for the PlayStation 2. So I have a fond place in my heart for the EverQuest franchise. Congrats to the original EQ turning 20, even though that means I'm really old.
Still never played.
Well, that's because you're a terrible person. Misfit Rain says, I give a dub bomb to Breach to show everyone how to set up a successful microtransaction store. When you make a pair of gastric bypass surgery patient pants like that, no one will be going long without buying some kind of cosmetic item to make those go away. Man, the skimpy skirt/shorts and tight leather pants are going to make them rich. Yeah, that is probably, Misfit, that is probably the best description of the pants that I had for the first look ever. You are absolutely right.
You know, I just did a little video demo with Conqueror's Blade guys, and they were showing off the high-tier, cosmetic cash shop armor, and I'm thinking, God, the basic stuff must be really shitty.
Right? Misfit continues, okay, another dub bomb to you guys. Every time you mention the new Lord of the Rings MMO, I get a tingling feeling in my nether regions, and a small woo comes out of my mouth. I thank you for those moments.
I'm glad it's coming out of your mouth and not your nether regions.
I don't know if I'm complimented, disgusted. I was it good for you? I mean, that's all I can.
Do you need to go have a cigarette?
Yeah, seriously. Go ahead, Jason.
Hey, Duck Sky Shadow says, I have to give Guild Wars 2 Living Story all or nothing my biggest A-bomb. I'm not angry, just really upset. Oh, not because it's bad. The thing is, it went a little too... first of all, I don't want to give out spoilers for this because a lot of people haven't played it yet, including myself. So it said, we're a little too Infinity War on your ass. All the different heroes are trying to fight with everything they have to do stuff and whatever. But please, for the love of God, don't let the story end here before the new expansion, if we get one. Oh, we're getting one. I don't doubt we're getting one.
Yeah? So. Is it time for a Guild Wars 3 yet? No?
Yeah.
All right.
No.
Ange Lobia says, is Secret World failing? I liked that game when I was playing it. Well, the Secret World is gone.
Is it still around? The original?
It's maintenance mode. Yeah,
yeah. It's not gone.
And you can't, if you've never played it, you can't get into it now. It's only
really?
So you can't go buy it or anything like
okay.
that. I think at one point they were supposed to put a launcher on their own site because they removed it from Steam, the original, but I don't know if they ever did that. Let me check. Can I get, like, here's EA's site that has just info on it. And related games, Star Wars The Old Republic. Okay. Yeah, that works. I don't know. In theory, you were supposed to be able... You'll have to check it out, Ange, if you're talking about the original. You were supposed to be able to get the original client still from their site. It wasn't a link or anything. It was like a process you had to go through, but you can't get it on Steam. If you're talking about Secret World Legends, it's really not doing all that well either. Let's actually go to Jason's favorite. There are 275 players playing right now.
Well, but that's only via Steam. They have their own launcher too.
But this one was primarily this was a Steam launch though, a Steam product.
Sure.
So not like the original where it came later. So yeah, and a lot of players. I mean, Q would be better apt to speak to this on the show. She couldn't make it today, but a lot of players are kind of miffed. There's a lot of content that was been promised that still hasn't been delivered, and the events are just have been rehashes. They have put a little bit of new content in there, to be fair, but yeah, I don't know how long that one's going to hold out.
Funcom has like whatever 6 games in development already.
Yeah, I think they're so focused on the other stuff that's making money that it's hard to blame them for.
Making money. I'm looking at Mutant Year Zero on Steam, and it's not a whole lot better than Secret World Legends.
Yeah, but see, I would expect that. I mean, that is a very niche strategy type title,
sure,
so I wouldn't expect it. I'm talking about their Conan stuff. That's what they're focused on. Go ahead, Jason.
Okay, Shanoa Belmont says, almost the end of the world, died of laughter.
Yeah, that was when we were talking about Fortnite Save the World, and I was giving Jason an update from an article. And I said, oh, yeah, this is published October 29th, so right near the end of the world, end of the year. Goofy me.
Ended yet?
Question of the week last week, what is your most anticipated free-to-play title of 2019, or a title you think could be free-to-play if they just haven't confirmed it yet? Hydrex Sky Shadow said, question of the week. Okay, well, hear me out. I know it's not announced, but usually after the living story it's over, Guild Wars 2 seems to announce a new expansion. I do hope it's coming. If that doesn't count then, I don't actually know the monetization of the games, but it's either Crowfall or Legends of Aria. So typically what Guild Wars 2 does is when their expansion comes out, you pay for that expansion, and then the previous stuff goes into the free-to-play bucket. Not right away with like the most recent expansion. It gets a deep dive discount and then ends up going free-to-play typically. So you'll have to buy the most recent one, but hey, Jason's somebody with you looking for the next expansion.
Yeah.
No? All right, fine. Go ahead, take the next one.
Use and Go, which sounds like a Quickie Mart kind of place. Use and Go says,
or a really bad relationship.
Oh, man. You had to go there. I was just talking about like Slurpees and stuff. You're just like...
I was too. You volley, I'll spike. Go ahead, just read their comments.
Like, as soon as I said it too, I realized I just did the wrong thing there. But I was like, maybe he won't. Oh, he did. God damn it.
Nope.
All right, question of the week: Lost Ark or Cyberpunk 2077? Lost Ark or Cyberpunk 2077? Hopelessly can't decide. Dub on for CCP games from EVE Online's good and working system, but A-bomb to them due to there is still a few bugs or feats that make no goddamn sense in that game in a game that is this old.
Yeah, well, we know Cyberpunk obviously is not going to be free to play.
Yeah.
Lost Ark, possibly at some point. Misfit Rain says, my most anticipated free-to-play MMO for 2019 is Fallout 76. I'm sure it'll go free-to-play or at least 2 weeks to own it free via Epic Store later this year. Just kidding. I already own it, not even playing it. Okay, to be serious, my most anticipated free-to-play MMO is Torchlight Frontiers. Also really hoping it will make it to console, cross-platform, and land on the Switch. Make this happen. Misfit, I am right there with you. Go ahead, Jason.
Squeezy says, question of the week, Lost Ark has to be my most anticipated game. I really hope for a closed open alpha/beta in 2019. Had the opportunity to play it on a friend's account, and I fell in love with the game.
Yeah, I'm hearing decent things about it. I don't know if we're going to see free-to-play this year for it, but I wouldn't say it's impossible.
Yeah.
Jack Bandit, question of the week. I know I'm going to get anger from a lot of people with this, but Diablo Immortal is my most anticipated free-to-play game for this year for a few reasons. A, not heard much on other games coming out this year, or I can't remember. And B, it would probably be the only mobile game I could stomach playing besides my SNES and Game Boy emulators. I had jury duty a few days ago, and boy, that would have helped pass the time. Hey, Jack, you're not going to get any guff from me if you're looking forward to Diablo Immortal. It's not something that I would play, but I don't begrudge anybody that wants to play it or is looking forward to it. My whole thing was Blizzard totally announced that wrong. That's where my gripe was. Where they announced it was not where they should have announced it. Finish it up, Jason.
Sokapex has one word in the response, and it is Torchlight.
Yep. I think that a bunch of us are looking forward to that one. Question of the week for this week. Is the future of esports in trouble as a whole? Why or why not? Let us know in the comments below how you feel. Plus, anything you want to talk about from our news section, you can throw those comments in there as well. But don't forget your weekly bombs. Dub bomb for something good, A bomb for something bad. Maybe we'll read it on next week's show. Until then, Jason, where can everybody find you?
Find me on the Twitters at Winter Informal, streaming at twitch.tv/Jason Winter.
Mike Byrne, you can follow me personally on Twitter right there at magicman1. But more importantly, while you're there, follow at MMOBomb so we can tweet you with all the latest giveaways, news, interviews, first look videos, free-to-play casts, free-to-play weekly, and more. And of course, until next time, stay safe. We'll see you out on the servers.